For Riverina.
Well, a little bit of history, and history is important, and context is important. And the current opposition leader was never the Agriculture Minister. The Nationals would never give that up, quite frankly, in government or in opposition or any other time. With all due respect to my great friends in the Liberal Party, the agriculture portfolio belongs and stays in the National Party, even though I appreciate the member for Braddon is right here, and he's probably raised more cattle and done more farming than most of us will ever do. That said, and I'll take the member for Blair up on saying, what did we do? He didn't give any opportunities or talk about what Labor is doing. I will fill him in with some of those details in a moment. But the Pacific Australia Labor Mobility, you've had your turn, mobility scheme was introduced in April 2022 in the Morrison coalition government. It replaced the seasonal workers program, and that was Julia Gillard's ALP government in 2012, and the Pacific Labor scheme, which came in 2018 when Malcolm Turnbull was the Prime Minister. Now, the PALM scheme allows Australian businesses to hire workers from 9 Pacific countries and Timor-Leste, and it helps to fill labour gaps in rural and regional Australia by offering employers access to a pool of workers. And they are good workers. They are vital workers. They are essential workers. And not only do they add to all components of industry and agriculture and endeavour in rural and regional and remote areas of this fine country, but they add so much vibrancy to our local communities. And we thank them for that. And if ever there is a diplomatic way to ensure that the Pacific knows that we care, and I know the member for Blair appreciates this too, it is through the PALM scheme. It is through this Labor scheme. I say that as in with a U, Labor scheme, because when we talk about Labor without the U, and I think a little bit of a history lesson, I think Labor dropped the U in 1912. And for those listening, for those tuning in, they've forgotten about you ever since. Labor's changes to the PALM scheme include— I knew that'd get them going, Mr Speaker. I knew that'd get them going. It's like he's shooting fish in a barrel, really, but because they know how true it is. Now, forcing farmers— this is the Labor way— forcing farmers to offer a minimum of 30 hours per week over 4 weeks to PALM workers. They will then be forced to offer 30 hours per week every week from July 1, 2024. This is despite agricultural work being seasonal and weather dependent. The member for Braddon knows that. He knows how seasonal and weather dependent the farm he runs and the operation he does in Tasmania, let alone anywhere else. The new rules don't work for farmers, particularly in the horticulture sector. What if it is too wet to work? So we have the workers sitting around getting paid, doing nothing. Now, I appreciate that we have to look after the PALM workers. I get that. And exploitation of PALM workers is beyond the pale. And I know the member for Bendigo, in her contribution, I'm sort of being a little bit psychic here, not psycho, but psychic. She'll probably go to that. So I'll say it before she does. You can't exploit workers. No one should do that. And it is so egregious that some people think that they are there to be exploited. And if anybody has any examples of that, please report them, because it is so important. They need to be paid the right amount of money. They need to be given the right conditions. They need to be treated as equals with Australians, because they are. But you can't also have that impost on farmers whereby it's going to make them walk away from the PALM scheme. And that is actually happening. It's happening in Queensland. It's happening in my state of New South Wales. It's happening right across the country. Farmers are now determining that the PALM scheme is all too difficult. They can't afford to pay somebody not working, and they're walking away from it. You heard from AusVeg through the member for Nichols' contribution. That is why this motion is so important. That is why it is important to make sure we get PALM right. It's also important that we get agriculture right. And Labor has walked away from our farmers. They've walked away through the changes to the Murray-Darling Basin plan. They're taking productive water out. That's going to force the price of groceries up. It's going to force the amount of imported food in, and we know that the best food is grown in Australia by Australian farmers, and we should thank them 3 times a day, every day when we tuck our knees under the table and eat.